trove. And, of course, MSNBC, CNN, nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, exactly. That shows they're scared. That's good news. Just because they don't cover it, don't think it's bad news. That's good news. They don't want to, just like they don't touch anything. If you watch at night, it's all anti-democratic, Trump's fascist, all that. And they were scared to death of the Maggie Haberman story, right? They're already criticizing her about Trump coming back in August. But you never see about Biden's economy. You never see anything he's doing. You never see any action he's actually taking unless it's tied up with some sort of issue about racism. Okay, I want to go now to Dr. Mike Yeadon. He was at Pfizer for many, many decades, one of the top researchers and scientists. He's been, I guess, technically a whistleblower because he's come forward with what the truth is. So, Mike, given all the Fauci lies and misrepresentations, and now it's all coming out about what these guys knew about Wuhan and the financing of gain of function and all the lies he's been telling Congress and all the spin and everything like that. I've got to ask you, you dedicated a big part of your life to Pfizer. What I don't understand, because I've watched all your YouTubes, I've seen your interviews, is how, I take it you wouldn't have given your life's work to an organization that you felt at the time was either misleading people or trying to harm people or not doing something that was to the greater good. You're a scientist for that reason. Why is it today that you've kind of said, no, this whole thing's false, it's misinterpreted, they're giving you false information? Why the shift? And why the shift in an organization that you dedicated your life to, sir?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, a PhD researcher. I had 32 years in the industry, left Pfizer 10 years ago as vice president, head of research for respiratory, and I've been an entrepreneur since. I don't recognize my former employer. I love working there, but I don't think what they're producing at the moment is the sort of thing that I would have heard of previously. But the reason I've spoken out, and I'm the only senior former pharmaceutical company person speaking out, is that everything that our governments are telling us about the virus, treatments, vaccines, and measures to take, they're all wrong. Now, normally we talk courteously when we disagree. Mistaken, we'll use words like that. And I'm afraid the people who are advising my government and yours are clever. And I know that they know that what they're telling you is wrong. In other words, it's lies. They're actually lying. And I think the objective in lying is to frighten people and to frighten people to accept these really strange gene-based vaccines. And I think the purpose of that ultimately is to force us to have an electronic vaccine passport, which is really a digital ID. That's the long and short of it, and that's why I'm speaking out.
Okay, so I want to go back there because we pride ourselves on not being conspiracy theories, and as proven on November 3rd, now you're seeing the receipts about what happened as approved in Wuhan, which we kept saying at the beginning, this is all done by the PLA coming out of that lab. But we also believe there are no coincidences. What facts and evidence do you put forward to basically back up your case that all these people are lying? Because that's a pretty bold statement. So you're a research guy. You make your life on data-based, evidence-based.
Yeah.
Show me the data. Show me your evidence.
I will certainly do that. First of all, I can step through, I would say there are about 6, 7, 8 main narrative points that all governments tell their people. Now, I won't take long. Novel virus emerged from China. You have no immunity, and it's unusually lethal. Those things are not correct. It's actually closely related to 4 common cold-causing coronaviruses. Lots of people had immunity, that's in the literature, and it's not unusually lethal, according to John Ioannidis, the most cited epidemiologist. So that was an exaggerated pressure. No treatments. That's not true. Hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin, zinc, ivermectin, budesonide, and others. You can find them on the American Association of Physicians and Surgeons website. That stuff's been hidden, and anyone who's raised those treatments has been smeared. And as a result, people, I think, have died where they could have been treated. Then,
Dr. Yeadon, hang on one second. Hang on one second. I just want to go back before we go into the next one about the therapeutics. So we've been a big name in therapeutics, but can you cite Brazil, India, Europe, Africa, you pick it, anywhere in the world right now that you've seen that you think the evidence shows that these therapeutics, I would call them, treatments or therapeutics, not vaccines. Can you cite any example right now where you think that they, on some sort of mass basis, have actually worked to make sure that this thing did not either spread to the population or was not as lethal as the governments and the media and the pharmaceutical companies are saying. Can you cite something?
Yeah, there's two things. One, as you say, there's kind of regional. There were areas of India where the governments were handing out ivermectin just routinely, and this was no big deal. It's a cheap, generic, safe drug they use for treating parasites. So they had huge supplies of it already, and in those territories in which they were handing it out, they had very, very low illness and mortality. But in addition to that, there are formal studies. They're not the normal, placebo-controlled trials that normally pharmaceutical industries have, but nevertheless, there have been totals of thousands of patients treated or not with each of the drugs I mentioned, and I would say definitely passes the standard of these drugs that you really ought to use, rather than the position that lots of regulators have taken to say, well, the evidence isn't sufficient. So they actually then suppress or smear the drug. But there are some really good scientists like Dr. Peter McCulloch, Dr. Pierre Corey and others. These are top-notch people in their field, and it's their work that I'm citing.
Okay, so go ahead with your other elements. So you're saying your argument. Continue on.
Absolutely. I won't waste anyone's time with PCR. I think we know that if it's over-amplified and you don't take account of the false positive rate, you can just get misleading numbers of cases and death attribution. But here's the three I think that go together. That we have been persuaded that even though you have no symptoms, you can spread this infection to other people. You can be a respiratory health threat to others even though you have no symptoms. This is simply not true. And I can explain why it's not true. When you've got, to be a good source of infection, you need to have an airway full of virus. If you do, you will have symptoms because the virus is destroying your airway lining and your immune system is fighting back. Those two things, without any question, produce symptoms. You can't be a good source if you're not symptomatic. So if you're symptom-free, you're not going to be spreading this virus. That's what was also found in formal studies. So it's both what your mother would have told you and also what the empirical data tells you. Yet, we've been told that is happening, and as a result, you have to wear masks, which don't work and are not necessary. And we've been also told, this is the really big one I need to emphasize.
Hold on, hang on one second. But hang on, before you go to the lockdowns, I just want to put a paper, we're going to go to break. But Raheem, what Dr. Yeadon's saying in those last two absolutely conforms.
Yeah, they track exactly.
This is ladies and gentlemen, this is the payoff. What Dr. Yeadon just said, we got studies and everything like that, but even better, we got Dr. Anthony Fauci. Anthony Fauci both agrees in writing in an email early on that it can't spread by asymmetric, if you're asymmetric. Asymptomatic. And he also says that the masks don't work. Completely backs up what Dr. Yeadon says. And Fauci knew this from the beginning, right?
Presumably this will be in his book.
Yes.
It's amazing. Dr. Yeadon, hang on for a second. We can take a short commercial break. We have to pay some bills here. Raheem, this is the beauty of what Yeadon and these people have been saying. They've been smeared as wingnuts. They've been smeared as kooks. Okay, let's just go to the receipts. We now have the receipts. I didn't see this in the Washington Post write-up yesterday. I didn't see this in the New York Times or the BuzzFeed write-up yesterday. I didn't see how it backed up what many people have been saying. Raheem Kassam.
What did I say? I think it was like the second week after we launched the show. I said you cannot have political reporters asking these questions.
Amen.
Right?
In the White House.
And it did. They did. And everything got politicized as a result.
That's brilliant. You said that. You said you need it right here with Jason. He said that we need the science and technology heavy hitters who are beyond question. They look for the data, evidence, and science. Back in a minute, Dr. Mike Yeadon, formerly of Pfizer, and the emails of Dr. Tony Fauci.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, go to mypillow.com right now. Type in promo code WARROOM. You got the toppers, 30% off. Pillows, $29.98, $40 off. Throw in another $5. Get the king size. These sales are not going to last forever, so get on top of them right now. You haven't slept. You slept on Giza sheets, not called Giza Dream Sheets for nothing. Okay, so make sure you go. And if you want to pretend like you're Raheem Kassam, get yourself a pair of slippers or moccasins. Okay. And so Raheem, anything else before I go back to Dr. Yeadon? This is why Fauci's email trove is so important, and why it's guys like Gateway Pundit and National Pulse and others are going through doing the grinding work. And by the way, to know it's crowdsourced from this audience is absolutely unbelievable, because it reinforces what people like the Dr. Mike Yeadons have been saying for a while. They've been ostracized from colleagues who have revered their reputations for decades, but now they're coming out with this, oh no, these guys are cranks, these guys are wingnuts, these guys are conspiracy theory. Then you see where Tony Fauci, from the very beginning, is saying the exact thing Dr. Yeadon's saying, Raheem Kassam.
So we just put up another story. This is about the one that I talked about, Christian Anderson and the Scripps lab out in California. But I want to tease something else here. Natalie has found something extraordinarily interesting, which dates back to 2011. This is a National Institutes of Health conference that was taking place. And what we found discussed in that conference was how the manipulation of bat coronaviruses could pose a, quote, significant threat to human health, and that the deputy director of the Wuhan lab at the time asserted that the lab had, quote, no regulation on this type of research. We will be showing the receipts on that very shortly. Again, more smoke is becoming fire. Put it that way.
It's fire. It's not even smoke. It's not a smoking gun. It's a firing gun.
I'm just trying to be...
It's a dumpster fire.
I'm just trying to... For the Washington Post reporters watching this, smoke is becoming fire.
You're blowing these guys away. It's amazing that you're punching way above your weight today, sir.
Fashion myself on the British Empire.
I want to go back to Dr. Michael Yeadon. Today we're being schooled by the British.
Yeah.
Got Dr. Michael Yeadon, got Raheem Kassam. Dr. Yeadon, continue on. We just wanted to clarify that and show that Tony Fauci has supported you, Dr. Yeadon, from the very beginning, although you wouldn't know that publicly. So, sir, continue on with your punch list.
Yes. Yes, so I was just, Dr. Fauci had said, as I am saying, that people without symptoms are not the drivers of epidemics. I think he said exactly that phrase. So here's something we have all been required to do in pretty much every country: lockdowns, business closures, stay at home. Why? The idea was, this is a disease transmitted between human beings. So if you reduce contacts between human beings, you'll slow the epidemic, right? No, that's not true. Let's take a step back. Fauci just said you need to be symptomatic in order to drive transmission. Let me just take you back to that. If you're symptomatic, we had a word for that. It's called ill. If you've got flu or coronavirus and you have symptoms, you're very unlikely to be wandering around outside, going to work, buying gas, walking on the sidewalk. What I'm saying is that transmission generally didn't occur outside in the ambulatory community, because generally people who have good sources of infection are symptomatic and ill and stayed at home. So when we locked down the economy for months, smashed civil society, we obtained no benefit. That is true. That's not my speculation. There are over 30 peer-reviewed journal articles comparing whether there was lockdown or not and its stringency on spreading of transmission in various countries. No effect whatsoever. And that tallies with what I just told you. You wouldn't expect reductions in personal contact with people who are not symptomatic to do anything to reduce transmission. So, but the thing I wanted to say, Steve, you asked me.
Okay, but hang on 1 second. I got to put a point in this. Yeah. This is, and to following the narrative along at home, ladies and gentlemen, Tony Fauci, who's now chief medical advisor to Joe Biden, although you haven't seen Joe Biden with many photo ops with Tony Fauci here recently, have you? That's not by chance, okay? He was also the senior voice of the Trump administration in the councils of making these decisions. Did Tony Fauci, when they talked about 30 days to suppress the spread because of the capacity utilization of the ICU units, when they talked about expanding it out to 45 days, when all these different state governors were making these decisions, did Tony Fauci, knowing what his email said, knowing what Dr. Yeadon just said, and Tony Fauci, according to his emails, being a believer in that, did Tony Fauci, is there any set of emails where Tony Fauci actually argued and presented the evidence that's counter to what he just said there. This is why Tony Fauci is a dangerous person and a bad guy. Okay? You're going to find out as you peel back layer by layer by layer, and you're going to have to peel it back. And also for Fauci and those guys, understand something. When we take power again in November of 2022, the investigations, if it's not done now, it's going to be done then, and it's going to be done in a level that gets to the bottom of everything they ever said. I happen to think that you're going to see many more investigations. Should be a commission on this immediately, even-handed, with a number of experts throughout the world. Tony Fauci, for him to sit there, understanding what Yeadon just said, understanding what Tony Fauci put into these emails, to know that he sat there, the trillions of dollars of damage, the psychological damage, the years behind kids not having the education, the everything that went on psychologically with people, the lack of confidence in the nation, all of it. To know you sat there, understanding what the truth was and didn't say it, hey, all bets are going to be off. Dr. Yeadon, go back. I'm sorry for interrupting, but I got to make sure we reinforce Fauci's problem here.
You asked me a bit of a strong statement to say people are lying and maybe a conspiracy, but here's my point. So far, I do a long form normally interviews and writing. It's true what I've said, that these points are simply not correct, and because the people saying it are smart, they know everything I know and more. And that means they must be deliberately telling untruth. But here's the killer observation, Steve, to your question. They're all the countries around the world simultaneously adopted the same 6, 7, 8 falsehoods, all of them at the same time. All of the Europeans, my country, UK, I saw it in America. I just found that frightening because I recognized early on that some of them were just not right. And now I'm at a point where I'm saying all of them are incorrect. And I have one more, if I may, before we go to vaccines.
Sure, yes, sir.
But here's one that you'll recognize, I think, that this virus mutates, and the products of mutation, we call them variants. And that's true. So it's one of these things that's adjacent to reality. Yeah, when this virus replicates, it makes typographical errors. But it's a huge virus genetically, and it makes just literally a handful of errors. And so I went back to the databases and tried to work out what percentage of the virus had changed over 18 months. It is 0.3%. The most different variant is 99.7% identical to the Wuhan sequence. And if you're thinking, well, that doesn't sound very likely to escape my immune system, you are absolutely right. Not only is it not likely to theoretically, for reasons I don't have time to explain, but it's actually proven not to escape people's immunity. There's been people who've done wet immunology. They take blood cells from people who've been exposed to the virus, and they throw all the different variants at these people's cells in test tubes. All of them recognize all the variants because they're really the same. And yet, in my country, I cannot leave my country, Britain. I can't leave Britain at the moment because the borders are closed to prevent these variants moving around. Don't you find that terrifying? What I've just told you is the literature evidence and really good immunologists have shown there is nothing to fear from these variants. And yet the governments everywhere are telling you you might even need additional vaccines. So that's what I'm saying. Okay. They're telling you.
Okay, hang on. I got to put a pin in this because I talked in preparation for your visit with us today. I actually talked to a number of people I know in the UK, and people, quite frankly, Americans, hedge fund people, etc., that have traveled there. Raheem, this is what I don't understand about government policy. You got to explain it to me. It's about these variants. There are people that actually took the vaccine. I said, guys, you really got to think that through. They were vaccine hesitant, but they eventually got it because these are business people who feel like they have to travel. They're in the UK right now in quarantine, having taken the vaccine, and they go, yeah. He says, well, actually, if you're here in the UK, you can't even get into the United States. I go, well, what's the policy? If you have the vaccine, they go, well, the Tory government kind of wants to open up. But the Labour, and particularly the BBC, every day they put another 2 scientists nobody's ever heard of out there, and they go, it's the variants. It's all these variants. Now, Dr. Yeadon just basically told us that dog won't hunt. Why is BBC and why is the British government have people that have the vaccine that are now in hotels and B&Bs for a week or two, having to go through quarantine before they can go out into the British public.
And can I just add a corollary question to that as well, Dr. Yeadon? How many deaths were there yesterday in the UK?
Okay, all right. So let me take your question first. It was zero. Zero. There was zero coronavirus deaths attributed to the coronavirus yesterday. But Steve, I don't have a good answer to your question. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. The 50% of the population have received two vaccines, and I think 75% have had one vaccine. And the prevalence is tiny. I mean, look, we're in June now. It's beautiful and sunny, and I've absolutely no idea why people are in quarantine having already been vaccinated. It literally makes no scientific sense. So I have no answer.
Hang on one second. Just stay right there. Raheem, how can you govern as a hard-headed, the Tories, and particularly the sweeping victory we just have with Brexit, when now we know 20% of the people that voted to remain would now vote to leave because they understand getting their sovereignty back. How can you have that movement? And really, as we keep saying, what's happened in Europe is always about 6 months ahead of us. And you're sitting there with just the most basic fundamental thing, you're not the prime reserve currency anymore. The economy in the UK is, I think, about to collapse given everything they've put off with jobs and everything like that. How can you govern? How can Boris and these people govern if something so basic as this, and Dr. Yeadon, an expert in the world, says, hey, honestly, I have no earthly idea?
Well, I don't know. I mean, Carrie Simmons absolutely believes that this is the way to go, and Carrie Simmons is Carrie Johnson, I should say, now, who married Boris Johnson in this, secret ceremony.
Catholic ceremony.
Secret Catholic ceremony at Westminster Abbey a couple of days ago.
He's got a worse track record.
I got to tell you, here's the deal. Okay, 3 months ago, I did a podcast called "How Carrie Simmons Will Affect the G7 Summit." Right. This last weekend, they get married in order that she can be the, quote, first lady at the G7 summit. Another cold shot.
There are no coincidences.
3 months ago, but you want to know who's really leading the charge on a lot of the lockdown measures and all of that. It is that, don't forget, she worked for the Clinton Global Initiative. She's tied in with all of this.
Totally global.
And Boris, I've always said it, we've all known it, that he doesn't have the stones to stand up to the people around him.
Also the intellect.
He's never been that guy. He's not affirmed in his confidence in his support within the parliamentary party, within the broader government, and that's why Britain finds itself in the situation it's in. Zero leadership. Look at the opposition leader. Sir Keir Starmer, absolutely feckless. Connects zero with the public, and the Labour Party is offering no opposition. Frankly, I feel like Enoch Powell at this point, when I wish the Labour Party would offer some good opposition up, because the country needs it. And yet, in both major political parties in the United Kingdom right now, you have no leadership on these issues, and the bureaucrats are running the show.
By the way, it's the same thing here in the United States. You can't tell one policy from another. They won't come forward, and they're not going to put Tony Fauci up there in the Bradley press room to walk through as senior medical advisor. The senior medical advisor. Okay, we'll return with Dr. Mike Yeadon, formerly of Pfizer, from the United Kingdom. We'll be back in the War Room in just a second.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
30% off toppers, $29.98 for the queen size pillow. Throw another $5 in. Get a king size. Go to mypillow.com right now. Type in promo code WORM. Action, action, action. Dr. Yeadon, we want to thank you for being with us. We didn't even get to vaccines and vaccine passports. And, you're one of the experts who's had Dr. Naomi Wolf on here. It's a massive topic. You can see the workarounds they're trying to do right now. We want to get you back hopefully tomorrow. We got a special broadcast tomorrow we're going to tell everybody about in the evening show today at 5 o'clock. How do people follow you, though, in the interim before you come back on the War Room? Social media, website, how do people get to you, because you're a real hero in this whole event?
Well, seriously, I haven't got a website, but if you Google my name and don't use Google, use DuckDuckGo or other search engines, and you'll find loads of stuff. You do Google, I don't seem to exist.
Yeah, funny how that works. Funny how that works.
Funny.
Dr. Yeadon, you're a hero. We look forward to having you back hopefully tomorrow, but we'll give everybody a heads up before you come back on. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today.
Thank you very much. All right, bye-bye.